The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and Your Sports Network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
What is up, party people? Welcome inside a Wednesday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. You can see it above our heads. It is Wednesday, which means it's Wrestling Wednesday with Gary Altizer. Before we go into all the stuff we're going to do today, I do want to point out that we were, guests. I know everyone expects a guest on this segment. Unfortunately, we were aiming for Tyler Littner from Fitch. Weren't able to nail him down to this particular time, but we are definitely hoping that we can get him interviewed before we post this on our website and this included into the episode. So we are fingers crossed that we're going to have him as part of the episode when it's posted as content on the website. Just unable to get him live on the show today. So we're still going to have a guest hopefully when this gets posted on the site, like I said. But for now, it's just me and Gary roaming through the last week of the regular season before we start getting ready for districts, if I'm not mistaken.
Next Saturday, next Friday, Saturday starts sectional. So yeah,
Awesome.
It's just this week and next week. So
Here we
it's
go.
here. Yeah.
We had a couple of finals come in throughout the last week. Teams are just finishing up their conference, their duels. First, I want to talk about the MVAC having their tournament at Crestview. There were some postseason awards handed out. The MVAC Wrestling Coach of the Year goes to Jackson Milton Brian Weidenthal. I hope I'm saying. Am I saying that right?
Wiedenthal, yeah.
Wiedenthal. Okay.
Yeah.
He got the Coach of the Year from Jackson Milton. Gary, we've talked about this program a little bit on this segment throughout the year. Absolutely deserving for Jackson Milton to have the Coach of the Year with what he's done, especially with his wrestlers that are 157 and below.
Yeah, Brian's done a great job, him and his staff. They've done a really good job building that program up. They have some really nice lightweights. They feel really close to a full team. Really, I think they're just maybe a weight class or two off. And they've been progressively getting better and better. And they're young, too. They're young. They have a really nice sized junior high program. So I'm happy for those guys. They're good guys. They care a lot about the kids. They do the right things. They say the right things. They coach their kids the right way. So it's nice to see him get that win. I'm sure that feels good for him. And I know that he's really now focusing on what's coming up, and that's sectionals. We just wrestled them 2 weeks ago. So I know he's ready. We're all getting ready for this postseason run that comes up next weekend, which kind of blows my mind that we're at this point in the season.
And you look at Jackson Milton, they won that MVAC tournament in Crestview. And like you said, they have really nice lightweights. It was because of them that they were able to win it. Jackson Milton won the 113, the 120. They won the 126. They won the 130. No, they lost the 132, finished second in the 132, finished second in the 138, and then won the 144. And then the heavyweights were really the teams that kind of the bigger teams with bigger wrestlers took the heavyweight. Garfield took the 150. Waterloo took 157. Brookfield got their only win of the tournament with Troy Randall winning the 175. He's a great wrestler. He beat out Western Reserve's Sincere French for the title in the 175. 190 went to Garfield. 215 went to Garfield, and then 285 went to Crestview. So, despite the heavyweights being dominated by the bigger schools in the MVAC, Jackson Milton was able to win this tournament by their domination in the lightweight categories.
Yeah, and that just it goes to show you how much it matters to have most or all the weight classes filled. So I think I've talked about this before, but a long time ago, a really great coach from Old Glen, Coach Larry Shaw, said, you don't win tournaments with your best guys. You win them with everybody else on your team. And it sounds like the lower weight classes did their job by, winning, taking first or second. And then their upper weights, even though they didn't win the weight classes, they were probably winning matches. They were getting pins, will get you bonus points. They were placing. That all matters, and that all added up to a win. I know they just kind of eked out that championship over Garfield. That Garrettsville Garfield team is a really respected team with some really high, really guys, a couple of guys that will be high on the podium and highly respected guys that really we're going to be watching next month in Columbus.
Talk about Garfield. Their two biggest names are the ones that you expect to win in this tournament. They absolutely did. Hunter Andel won the 165 over Jackson Colton Flynn. And then it was Keegan Sell, who's another big name in this Garfield athletics department and definitely on the wrestling team, football as well. He beat out Jackson Milton's Gavin White to win the 190 division. So those are the two names out of Garfield that everyone talks about. But like you said, it's not just those two that win you matches. It's the rest of your wrestlers that you have.
Yep, and you got to have the bonus points. You got to pull up a couple upsets. And you've got to get the ball bounce your way, and it looks like it did for Jackson Milton, so good for them.
We haven't talked about Crestview a ton yet this year, but they got a couple of heavyweights win, including the 285. Caleb Hughes got the win over Liberty's Thomas Easton in the 285 division for Crestview. They also had, I think I saw a winner up a little bit. They got second in the 150. Stallworth finished second to Joseph Sparks from Garfield. So Crestview had a good showing, especially at the heavier divisions as well. But we did not see AJ Coppersmith in these finishes. So maybe something going on with him where he had to miss this weekend.
Well, you got to remember also it's the end of the season.
Right.
This is a long season. This sport is an absolute grind. I don't care what anybody says. No sport gives you the grind in high school that high school wrestling does. You're battling every day. You start in November and you go all the way till mid-March if you make it to the state tournament. And even if you don't make it to the state tournament, you're only 2 weeks. You're only finishing 2 weeks earlier than those guys that go to mid-March. So you're finishing at the beginning of March. So you're talking almost 4 full months of battling every day, 100% contact sport. You're building your wind up with conditioning every day. And then you have to go battle with the guys in your room. And then you go Wednesdays for duels, Saturdays for tournaments, sometimes Fridays and Saturdays for tournaments, sometimes Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays for tournaments. So AJ was probably just resting himself up, knowing that the sectional tournament is more important than the league tournament. Not that it's not important, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't know anything personally, but I would imagine that's probably why he sat that tournament out.
Hopefully it was voluntary and he's not dealing with anything that forced him to be out of this. We definitely want one of our best wrestlers to be well represented in the upcoming tournament. You look at also I forgot to shout out as we're talking about Crestview. Troy Horst got second in the 113 for Crestview, so they had a good showing. I said, I want to give a shout out to Brookfield's wrestler that won the 175 division, Troy Randall, their only winner of the MVAC weekend, but he was able to beat out once again Stephen French from Western Reserve. And Brookfield had a lot of people place in this, but when you have one wrestler that's able to get the win, you get a lot of wrestlers that are close. It's got to be a momentum boost when you have a lot of wrestlers that get close, but then one's able to break through and get a win in a tournament like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of, obviously, not nearly as big of a stage, but in the NCAA finals, last year or the year before, Iowa, they won the title, but they only had one national champion, and it was in the last match of the night. It was Spencer Lee. We've talked about Spencer Lee. He's a phenom. He's an amazing wrestler. But what their coach said, which has stuck with me ever since he said that, was there was a lot of hearts healed when Spencer won that national title. So you got guys that get close. They had guys that lost just by the skin of their teeth, just lost barely. They lost the match because of a move here or there. So, yes, you got kids that are getting close. Maybe they didn't come through. Their 175-pounder comes up. He's able to get the win and be a champion. I'm sure the whole team was really excited for him. So you're absolutely right. Sometimes you get a champion when things didn't fall your way with some other weight classes that could just help the whole morale of the team.
So congratulations to Jackson Milton for winning the MVAC and all the other teams for a great showing this weekend. It was held by Crestview, so want to give a tip of the hat to Crestview for being able to host that event. Obviously, hosting a big conference tournament is a tall task for everyone involved, so the athletic department did a great job making sure that everything ran smoothly with I think 10 teams, 10 out of the 14 MVAC teams wrestle, if I counted right. So that's a big tall order from the athletic department to be able to host a tournament like that, and Crestview did a great job. We will also want to talk about the Salem Quakers, who went to Cuyahoga Falls to wrestle in a dual tournament, and they got the second place finish. They lost in the final to Division I Barberton, 43-33. But you look at their results, they were able to beat Cuyahoga Falls 66-15. They beat Lake by a score of 78-6. They beat Lakeside 66-9. Beat New Philadelphia, which, Gary, you were saying huge win for the Quakers. And you have to actually be specific because they're both Quakers in that aspect.
Yes.
Huge win.
Yeah.
Huge win for Salem, 39-34 over New Philadelphia to get themselves in that final against Barberton, where they eventually lost 43-33.
Yeah, Salem having a great year, man. Coach Hart's doing an awesome job there. I know New Philadelphia used to be in our conference in the OVAC, but they just removed themselves from the conference just within the last year or two. So I haven't seen them this year, but I do know they are one of the biggest Division II schools in the state. They used to be Division I just recently. So that's a good win for that Salem program, and then losing to a team like Barberton, that's not anything to be ashamed of. That Cuyahoga Falls team, I believe, is a Division I team as well. I believe that's a Black Tigers there, the public school there in Cuyahoga Falls. Of course, is also home to a national powerhouse in Walsh Jesuit, the same city there. But good job there by the Quakers. They're having a really great season. I'm sure their dual record is really, really good this season, and they've won several tournaments. This would be another runner-up tournament for them. They're doing great things there, and I know they've got a couple kids that they want to see do something this coming end of the month there as they try to get to Columbus.
Salem finishes the season 15-4 in dual matches.
Yeah, there you go.
And Kyle Burt was named the most valuable wrestler of the tournament, going 5-0 on the day. And then before that Barberton matchup, they really dominated. They won by a combined score of 282-107 going into that last matchup with Barberton. So they really dominated. Like you said, some big teams. Cuyahoga Falls is D1. Uniontown Lake might be D1. I know they're a big school. I don't know if they're one of those ones that teeters on D2, D1. But they beat them pretty handily. Ashtabula Lakeside is a big school, beat them handily as well. And then, like you said, the biggest win coming against New Philadelphia, who's a great wrestling program in their own right.
Yeah, it sounds like they were all pretty big schools. So Salem going there having a good showing, and again, I keep harping on this, but having depth in this sport goes such a long way. And if you've got multiple guys at each weight class, you can really strategize how you're going to wrestle the next team by seeing who you're going to send out. If you've got a kid that is really good on top, and you've got a kid that's in the same weight class that maybe he's better on his feet, but you're wrestling a kid that it's tough to score on your feet, but he's easier to score on when you're in the top position, then you can strategize who you send out. So I'm sure that's a lot of what Coach Hart did in coming through with these wins. Having depth, especially at this time in this season, is a really big contributing factor to teams that have a lot of success right now. They did have the state finals this past weekend as well. And those teams that come through are the ones that have depth and quality wrestlers in every weight class.
So let's talk about your last match of the season. Last night, you were unable to beat United, but I was talking to you before the show, and it's one of those unique feelings of wrestling where you go in and you're dealing with some injuries right now, so you didn't have all your wrestlers available. So that obviously means that you lose some weight classes right off the bat. But your wrestlers that were healthy rest really well, won all but 2 of their matches, but because of those injuries and because of those forfeits, you guys lost the duel.
Right.
What does that feel like for when you walk out of a gym? And this is what I said before the show started. You walk out of a gym feeling like you won. You feel confident because your wrestlers did so well, but the scoreboard says you didn't.
Yeah, and that's taking nothing away from United. We just,
Right.
My kids have wrestled really good last night. In fact, I think it's the best they've wrestled all year. We didn't have guys to wrestle Kenny Beaumarriage, and United's team at his best weight classes, or some of his best weight classes. We just didn't have guys. I'm just not healthy right now, and being from a small school, I don't have the depth to put in somebody else in some of those weight classes. So we only went with 8 yesterday. We won all but 2 of our matches in the varsity matches that we wrestled. And how does it feel? I walked out there feeling really good last night. And in fact, I told one of my assistant coaches that I'm not sure I've ever felt this good about a loss, just because of the improvement that I saw, especially from the younger kids that are on my team. The guys, the freshmen, or the guys who are wrestling for the first year or the first time since they were little kids, they're really showing a lot of improvement. And at this point in the season, as a coach, personally, that's exactly where you want to be. And even though we lost, I didn't care about that. I cared that they're growing as wrestlers. Things are starting to really come into flow for them as they're on the mat. They didn't give up for one single second. A couple of the younger guys got wins that, were probably looked at as upsets. So I came out of that feeling as good as I possibly could for the situation. And we're now done with our season, our regular season. We had another match last Wednesday night. We beat Columbiana. So we finished the season at 5-4 and finish up at 500 in our league. And I'll take that. Realistically, that's about what we wanted to accomplish with our goals for the year. And now we're just going to try to rest up, get healthy, work on things we need to work on here the rest of this week and next week, heading into next Saturday at Rootstown for our sectional tournament.
Winning records aren't easy. I think people take those for granted. So wouldn't it mean to kind of just to call yourselves, having that winning record and being able to clinch that, like you said last week with the win over Columbiana?
It's our 5th out of the last 6 years that we've had a winning record. It's been great, but can't do that without the kids coming out for the team, sticking it out all year, making weight, staying healthy, and doing their job. It feels great to do that. It's not, we're 5-4. It's not like it's anything spectacular, but for us, with a small team from a small school, we've went out and we've done our job. I haven't had anybody quit the team, and the kids are all still coming to practice every single day. Those are the things that I care most about, that they're having a positive experience because they keep coming back, and they're not quitting the team or getting tired of the sport. They're sticking around, and they're getting excited and obviously improving.
So, like you said before, this wrestling season is a grind for everybody. You are a good example of that. Like you said, you have some people that need to rest up and get healthy before sectionals start, but you have a couple of weeks. So how do you balance, putting all the work in and trying to fine tune stuff and getting stuff fixed before sectionals with also trying to get healthy as well and trying to give guys rest and trying to let them be as fresh as possible going into those sectionals?
Well, there's a coach for Navy. He coaches Navy now. His name's Kerry Colat. He was one of the greatest high school wrestlers in American history. He was a 2-time national champion in college. I believe he only lost twice in college. I think he only lost 2 matches, maybe 3 matches, and 2 of them were in the national finals. But he's a good coach. He's a guy that really grinded his whole life from the time he started wrestling to the time he stopped. But as a coach, I heard him speak once, and he said at the end of the season, he doesn't do that with his kids, with his wrestlers. At the end of the season, his practices start to get shorter. They don't do as much wrestling. They do, more conditioning, more sparring, more working on some of the stuff that they need to work on to improve on. And I think that's how you balance a sport like this that does take a toll on your body. When you get later in the season, you're not continuing to really push the kids and get them into the same point that they were earlier in the season. They've already done the drills. They already know, the moves. They already should be in shape. So now when you focus on getting healthy, you focus on keeping your cardio up. But maybe you don't wrestle as much, or maybe you're not doing things that are risky and getting yourself or your team hurt, or if somebody needs to take a day off. Hey, listen, we know your back's sore today and you're feeling it. You can take the day off. Go get on the bike. Go get on a treadmill. Jog around the room if you want. But that's all we're going to do today. So those are the kind of things that you have to keep in mind. And I really think at the end of the season that helps us, even with the mindset, because it's been a long season. So it helps not only physically but mentally as well.
What's your favorite thing as a coach to do that's not physical during practice? Like, is it film watching on off days? Is it little like tiny personal exercises that don't take a lot of strenuous activities? What's your favorite thing, the non-physical thing to do on those slower practice days to still keep them engaged and still keep your kids ready to go?
So Coach Sarge, he was a coach with me the last 5 years. He finally retired this year, so we don't have him this year. But one of the things that he liked to do was sparring. And what that is, you get the kids to partner up. They're not going 100% live like they do, when we wrestle in practice. Sparring is you get with a partner and you kind of just flow through things. You flow through moves. Maybe you do a takedown. After your takedown, your partner, he'll hit a move from the bottom. And you just keep going and going. And then while you're doing that, maybe you tell your partner, hey, I want to work on this. I want to work on my Peterson. So you try the Peterson, and then you go from there, from one move to the other. You practice kind of chain wrestling, but you're not going 100%. You're going 50 to 70%. You're still going through the motions. You're still trying, but you're just not. It's not the same kind of grind that a regular live practice would be with wrestling in it. And then while they're doing it, I like to have the coaches walk around. If we see the kids hitting a move, maybe they're not doing it right, or maybe they can improve. So we'll stop. Hey, while you're in this position, do this. Move here. Keep your head up, keep your hips down, keep hand control, those kind of things. That really does. I think that's really effective way to keep them moving, to keep them wrestling, but without risking a lot of injury.
Are there scout, like quote unquote scout teams at these? Like, do you say, hey, you're about to wrestle this guy. Here's what he does well, and then have that kid's sparring opponent try to do that kind of stuff, or try to mimic that, or mirror that, so he can practice against that kind of thing?
Sometimes, yes. And as a younger coach, as a coach when I first started, I focused on that a lot. But I found that when you do that, you're focusing more on your opponent, and you're not focusing enough on yourself. It's good to be aware of those things, in my opinion, to be aware of this, this kid likes, this takedown, or if you do this, they're going to, this is a trademark move with their team. So how do we counter that? Yes, we'll go over those things. But I try these days not to focus on that nearly as much as I focus on what we're doing and what our job is and how we're going to wrestle. Because if you focus too much on your opponent, I feel like you can get the kids kind of out of their, out of a good mindset where they're only worrying about what their opponent's doing instead of just focusing on what they need to do. So if there is a move that I know a kid hits, hey, be aware of this. Remember, this is how we counter it. But you worry about yourself and you wrestle your match.
Talking about worrying about yourself and being able to kind of self-scout yourself and coach yourself. We've talked to a lot of athletes that talk about how the technology of today makes it really easy to do that. You have your iPad, get on, you can watch film of yourself whenever you want. From your perspective as a wrestling coach, how much have you seen wrestling IQ go up in kids and the ability to almost coach themselves and try to learn what they're doing themselves and be able to kind of self-evaluate with the added technology bonus that we have in today's world?
Oh, it's totally changed the sport. I mean, I don't know how anyone can say it hasn't. The amount of information freely available at your fingertips now about the sport of wrestling is really astonishing. And compared to before the internet, where you had to rely on a coach to basically show you things, or maybe you saw something at a tournament and you worked on it and practice afterward. Now maybe you bought a DVD or a video or read a book about things. That's about it. Nowadays, you could just get on YouTube and literally search just about anything and find it out. And I'll die on the cross that says we are so much technically better as a country in folk style wrestling now than we have ever been, and that will probably continue. You constantly see these moves. We're seeing moves now that we've never seen before because people are just so creative, and then they share that information out on the internet, and it spreads like wildfire.
For those of you that don't know, Gary is coming to us live from the parking lot of TJ Maxx, which I always thought I told him it'd be cool to go into the store and be like, "Hey, we're live from TJ Maxx over here. What do we want to get?" Let's have some fun before we let you go for this segment. Obviously there's a lot of people that are trying to get into wrestling or trying to, come into the sport. And I'm sure you see it a lot. Some people that come in with not a lot of knowledge. And I bet you've had a lot of funny questions, a lot of silly questions that are asked of you as a wrestling coach, as the expert maybe in that person's life. What is the silliest question or the most off the wall question you've gotten about the sport of wrestling that you've either rolled your eyes at or you don't even know how to answer?
Oh man, there's people who don't know the sport. The first thing that they, for some reason, they want to talk about is the uniforms, and this is classic. Where did you guys get your leotards? That's the first thing that I hear, and I always like, what? And at first, my brain's like, what are they asking? Oh, that's called a singlet. That's not a leotard. It's called a singlet. That's the first thing. And then usually with kids that are new to the sport, they'll say, "Hey, coach, am I fighting today?" Well, no, buddy, you're not fighting. You're going to wrestle. There's no fights. There's no fists. This is a controlled environment where you're not going to hurt yourself or anyone else. So those are probably the things that I think are, funniest when I'm asked. The most ridiculous thing that I've ever been asked. Oh boy. Well, one time he was a little kid, wanted to know how he jumped off the turnbuckle, which I thought was kind of funny at the time. He wanted to know, the technique to do it. And I just had to kind of laugh to tell him there were no turnbuckles in this sport. It was our first practice and he wanted to know when we were going to work on that. He was in elementary school, so I had to give him some slack.
Well, obviously, in every sport, there's parents that support their kids, but they don't know anything about the sport. I'm sure you've run into those kind of parents that, like, God love them, they're supporting, but they have no, like, they don't even try to understand the sport. What do you have any funny stories about a parent just kind of watching and not knowing and just kind of enjoying the moment and that kind of thing?
Yeah, just reminds me of a couple years ago at the district tournament. I know that this guy that was wrestling, I think he was a first or second year wrestler, but he did really well. And his parents were there watching him wrestle, and he got pinned. And the mom and dad were yelling, well, his shoulders weren't down for 3 seconds. And you don't have to have your shoulders down for 3 seconds. If they're flat for 1 second, completely flat, and the ref sees that you haven't moved, you're done. So they're arguing and yelling at this ref, walking down from the stands, walking down towards the mat, screaming that his shoulders weren't down for 3 seconds. And I kind of just looked at one of my assistants, and we both gave each other like the same look. And we could just tell they were new parents. And I don't know if they were assuming things were just like they were in the WWE, where it has to be a 3 count. But that is not the case with high school wrestling in Ohio.
There's a viral video on social media of wrestler. The two guys are wrestling, and the referee comes and just does this. I don't know if you've seen a really funky move to get on the ground, and he kind of worms his way through the camera shot.
Yeah.
How many, is it really hard to ref and try to get your eyes down there and see if he's actually pinned and see what you have to see? Or are there referees that maybe not do something that extreme, but you have to get in some funky positions to see what they have to see?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not easy. You got to keep up with the match and where the kids are moving all over the mat. And, they could go from one side of the mat to the other in no time, especially if there's a throw or, a kid comes running into the other one and he gets hip tossed. I mean, they can go from one side of the mat to the other really quick. So the ref does have to get in position. And the longer it takes him to get in a position, the other kid could be missing out. The top position could be missing out on points. The guy that's controlling the match, he could be missing out on back points or a pin. So, yeah, the refs have to get into a good position as quickly as possible. being in the right positions comes with, I think, experience, but sometimes it's unavoidable. You have to get around to the other side, up and over, around. And I know what match you're talking about, where that ref was kind of up on his shoulder, and you don't see the ref. Then all of a sudden you see the ref slide on by. He's just moving his legs as he goes on by to call the pin. I've not seen that personally, but that's definitely a tactic that I guess you could use in that situation.
Something right out of a horror movie, man. It was like, what the? It looked like he was possessed by the creature from The Grudge, man.
Oh man.
Last thing, when was the last time you did any kind of wrestling in any kind of way, whether it be 100% or just sparring someone or just kind of getting back in those singlets and trying to feel how it feels?
Oh, geez.
When was the last time you did any kind of anything like that?
A very long time ago, just a couple years out of high school. I wrestled in some open tournaments. That was the last time, very long time ago. And I did not put on a singlet. I just wore shorts and a T-shirt. So the last time I wore a singlet was in high school. And I definitely do not want to see what I would look like in one today.
What would it take? Like if your high school team came and said, "Hey, coach, what would we have to do? Like what kind of accomplishment would we have to make for you to wear one to practice? What would they have to do?"
If every kid on the team got straight A's, I would do it. Every single kid on my team got straight A's. I would wear a singlet to practice one day.
You heard it.
There you have it. Yep. That's it. Yep.
Challenge.
Straight. I'm talking 4.0. I'm not A-, don't count. 4.0. Every single kid, I'll do it.
Heck, I'll come tutor you.
That's kid. Hey. All right. All right. I like that.
Gary, it's so fun to talk to you every week. Thank you so much for hopping on this week and bringing us some fun, bringing us some more wrestling insight. I know we're gearing ready for sectionals, which we're so excited about. And this was episode 9, so we'll be back for double digits next week for episode 10.
All right, Ian. Thanks again, man. Next week I'll be back in my office.
Back in your home, not at TJ Maxx.
Not at TJ Maxx.
All right, Coach. Thanks again, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, we'll see you.
Man, that's fun. Gary Altizer, Wrestling Wednesdays with Gary Altizer. As we said, we were unable to get a guest live on the show this week, but we are still, me and Gary both trying very diligently to try to get an interview that we can kind of push into that episode and clip it so we can have one when the episode comes out as a piece of content on the website, because as much as we like talking to ourselves and hearing ourselves talk about wrestling and hearing someone like me who's trying to just continue to learn about the sport and be able to talk about it in a somewhat educatedly manner, it's so cool to be able to highlight the area wrestlers and the coaches. So we're going to do our very best to try to get an interview as part of the episode before it gets up on the website as a piece of content. But that was episode 9. I can't believe we're already going into week 10 of Wrestling Wednesdays with Gary. And by next week, we're going to be getting ready for sectionals. It'll be that weekend. So that'll kind of be a sectional preview show next week. And then all of a sudden, we're going to be talking about districts in the week after. And then hopefully we'll have a lot of state representatives to talk about in the final week of Wrestling Wednesdays. This has been a fun season so far. And the end is always the most bittersweet, right? Because we get to talk about wrestlers that are accomplishing the main goal, which is getting into Columbus. But we also obviously have to talk about the end of seasons. And that's what the bittersweet thing is about tournament time, is we get to talk about these teams that are doing their best and in winning games and winning tournament games in big situations. But we also, the seasons end, right? From now on, because girls start tonight, from now on in girls basketball, their seasons are ending. Tonight's seasons are going to be ending on Saturday. More and more seasons are going to be ending, and more schools are going to be transitioning into the spring sports dynamic. So that's kind of the bittersweet part of tournament time. We're going to talk about the tournament games that are going to be going on tonight in girls basketball, all on the network. And we'll preview what these district brackets look like. Divisions 2, 3, and 4 all in action tonight, and then Division 1 gets back at it with the sectional finals tomorrow. We're going to take a break, though. When we come back, we'll have all that on Running Point, brought to you, as always, by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Be right back.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day has ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Why choose local? Because you live here, work here, learn here, relax here, and celebrate here. 21 WFMJ is our Valley's only locally owned TV station, and our focus is local. Other TV stations don't have that same focus, as their owners are somewhere else. But 21 WFMJ is rooted in the Valley. Local people making decisions that affect your life, right here where you live.
You're looking to your future, preparing for your goals, and they're closer than you think. Because here, success is part of the plan. It's a place where academic and social opportunities are meant to prepare you for life, not just the next 4 years. You'll be equipped to face new challenges and turn hard work into a career. You're ready for your success to take root. And here's where it starts. We are Youngstown State University, and proud.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point on YSNLive.com, brought to you as always by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin. Got a little ahead of myself before the commercial break. Before we preview the games tonight, we do have to go over the games that happened last night because there were some pretty important scores that came in on the boys basketball side of things, and another conference has been decided in a very unconventional way that we see out of the NE8. We'll get to that and more. First, Newton Falls, they were able to bounce back from a couple of tough losses in a row. They beat Niles in non-conference play last night, 47-40. We saw Beaver Local edge Minerva 58-55 in one of the closer matchups we saw of the night. We saw Lakeview be able to get the best of McDonald, 60-55. The Bulldogs win there. Girard, a good bounce back from their loss to West Branch over the weekend, 54-44. They were able to go on the road and beat Springfield in the jungle. We saw Struthers get the win over Camel, 64-52. The Wildcats able to hold off the Red Devils in the Fieldhouse. How about this? A pretty good win for Canfield against a very good Alliance team, 66-60. The final score there, that was a real fun one. If you had the chance to watch Richie Giuliano, they went back and forth. And I feel like if there were a couple of points in the game where the tempo kind of slowed down a little bit, but if it weren't for that, this game could have gotten, into the 70s, into the 80s. I mean, 66-60 doesn't do the offensive speed and athleticism of these two teams were able to put on justice, because they were really having good offensive nights. They were both shooting really well. And I think if the game tempo didn't slow down in a couple of parts of the game, it could have really gotten up into the 70s, up into the 80s. It was a very fun basketball game to watch. I had a chance to catch a little bit of it. My game started a little bit late because of senior night in Champion. We'll get to that score in a bit, but first, Howland was able to get the win, 66-17 over the Academy of Urban Scholars. Badger was able to bounce back after their loss to Pie Valley. They beat Heartland Christian, 75-71, the final score there. And this is the one that decided a lot of teams' fate in the NE8. South Range and Jefferson, we talked about it yesterday as a preview. They went down and played each other for the last NE8 conference game of the season. Remember, it was a makeup, so it was the last one. There were no conference games to be played after it, and South Range went down after a tough first quarter. They gave up 24 points in the first quarter, which is not exactly indicative of the defense that South Range usually plays. Joji George really just had a great start to the game for Jefferson, and we talked about how good of a player he is. But they went up 24-14 after one quarter of play, and then the Raider offense in the first quarter kind of struggling. They put their chips in Landon Moore's basket because he kind of kept them in the game with 11 first quarter points, 11 out of their 14 first quarter points. But this South Range team thrives when they're balanced, and they got some balance as the game went on. Landon Moore still finished the night with, I believe, 21 to lead the Raiders, but they got some balance as the game went on. They had Luke Rowan start to come on in the second half, and he scored 10. They were able to push this game all the way to 40-40 at the end of regulation. So you think about that. Jefferson had 24 points after the first quarter of play, and they finished regulation with just, 40. So they finished regulation with 16 more points from that first quarter on. That's impressive defense. You give up 24 in one quarter, and you give up 16 the rest of the way. The Raiders, on the other hand, they were able to score 26. So they beat the Falcons 26-16 from that point on. Still, both teams played really good defense because 26 isn't world beater. It wasn't like the South Range Raiders offense went off by any stretch of the imagination. But tied at 40 at the end of regulation, and man, does this Raiders team does so much experience in close games. We've seen so many thrillers go down the line for the Raiders, dramatic wins, game-winning shots, and they were able to do it again. Luke Rowan hit a 3 to win the game, 48-45. South Range gets the win on the road down in Jefferson, and it creates this three-way tie at the top of the NE8. The NE8 slate is done. There's no more games to be had inside the conference. So, Girard, you are conference champions. South Range, you are conference champions. And Jefferson, you are conference champions still. It's crazy. Crazy to see. Crazy to see a three-way tie. I don't think since Ysn started, I can't remember a conference ending in a three-way tie. We've definitely seen the two-way shares. But I haven't seen a three-way tie since we started covering basketball here at Ysn. I can't remember a three-way tie. It's very hard to do, but the reason why it happened is because this league has been so even throughout the season. Even the teams that aren't in that top three snuck up some wins on these teams. Struthers was able to knock some teams off. They knocked off South Range the first meeting. Poland got a big win over Girard. We saw Hubbard knock off Jefferson. It was such a crazy league where the bottom teams could beat the top teams any given night because they were so even with each other. There was a lot of parity in the NE8 this season, and I think that's why you see no one was able to run away with it, and then no one was able to dominate the other top teams, right? So Jefferson and Girard split. South Range went 2-0 against Jefferson, split with Girard. So none of those teams could say, okay, there are some bottom teams that can beat us, but we're going to take care of business against the top tier, quote unquote top tier. You can't really say top tier when the league is so even, but the teams in the top of the standings, we're going to take care of them. They couldn't do it. Only team that went completely undefeated against the top three team was South Range, who went 2-0 against Jefferson. Jefferson split with Girard split with South Range. So neither of those teams were able to run away from the other one. And I think that's like kind of a crazy formula to a three-way tie. One, you had to have parity from top to bottom, and two, you had to have teams at the top of the conference that couldn't really dominate the other three teams. And that's what you got. It's crazy. It's chaotic. Like I said, I hadn't seen it happen before as member of Ysn, and I've been here for every basketball season. I came on after our first football season in 2017. So I've been here for every basketball seasons that Ysn's had, and I can't remember. I know it's mucky because we didn't have our first season, we didn't have any conference. We just had 8 teams, and then we had, I think, 14 or 15 the next basketball season, maybe 20. It wasn't until 3 years into the company that we had like a conference, that we had the whole MVAC, we had the whole NE8, things like that. So, but I still can't remember a three-way tie. I remember some conversations like it was getting close, but every year it got close. There was one team that kind of put their foot down and said, no, we're not going to have that happen. We saw that on the girls' side this year. It was getting kind of dicey for a minute that there would be a three-way tie between Struthers, Girard, and Poland. But Obviously, Struthers took care of Girard, and then it came down to Poland versus Struthers, and the Bulldogs went down to the field house and took care of business, and that was just a one team winning the championship. It's that's how it usually goes. That's the normalcy of conference play, but this time around didn't go that way in the boys' side of the NE8. Three-way tie. So congratulations to all three of those NE8 champions. I think all three of them can make solid arguments that they earned it throughout the season. They all had great stretches of the year where you can say, well, that's a championship caliber performance. Especially Girard ran away with it at the start, and then the way South Range kind of turned things around, and then the way Jefferson kept chipping away under the radar, and they were right there. They were so close to winning it outright with a little win over Girard last week. So congratulations to all three teams. For the Raiders and the Falcons, I believe it's the first NE8 championship in basketball, and for Girard, they have to share it. Struthers has been having the stranglehold of the NE8 of late, but it wasn't to be this year for the Wildcats, who finished down below those three. We saw Pymatuning Valley go to champion last night, and they are very impressive. This is the first time I had the chance to see them live, and I was watching warm-ups, and I was like, there's not one guy on this team that isn't tall. They're such a long team. They have a lot of length. They can shoot really well. They're balanced. Obviously, you talk about Tyler Britton, who had a great game for them. He kind of facilitates the offense. But then, you have Kurzanik, who had a great game as well down low. He had the only dunk of the night. And they kind of spoiled senior night. It was a big senior night for Champion. They had 7 basketball seniors and 3 cheerleaders all get honored. So they had 10 senior night, honorees, or 10 senior night introductions. So it was a very long, very emotional, and very cool senior night. I kind of like those long ones. I know a lot of people are just like, a lot of people that aren't like a part of the school are like, let's just get this over with. No, but I like the long ones where, you see such an impactful senior class get their flowers a little bit. Because obviously when you have a big senior class like that, win or loss, you know what they've put into the program, that what they've set, and almost all those basketball players that are seniors. I think only one of them I heard, if I remember right, just listening to the announcements, only one of them aren't going to play some kind of sport at the next level. A lot of football, baseball, dual sport athletes. But then I saw there's one that's going to play soccer. So I think only one of them was not going to play sports. And by the way, that one was going to West Point for their future endeavors. So that just tells you all you need to know about those seniors and the impact they've had on Champion. And then Riley Robinette, who we had the chance to interview, definitely had a huge impact on the school because she founded the girls swim team. So not just the basketball players, but the cheerleaders having a big, big impact on Champion schools this year. So when you see big senior classes like that, it's kind of cool to see them get their flowers. Obviously, they couldn't get the win last night, but they were going up against a juggernaut in the Lakers. 71-34, the final score there for Champion in Pymatuning Valley. Hoover was able to beat Boardman last night, 61-30. We saw Salem really step on Western Reserve, 72-45, a big win for the Quakers against a reserve team that was kind of gaining some momentum. They got the win over Sebring, the big win over Sebring, a team that they lost to earlier in the season. So if that tells you that team's on the right trajectory going up when you beat up a team that beats you the first time, but not this time around. Salem was able to just wash right through, 72-45, the final score there. In what was the most competitive game of the evening and probably the most exciting one, it was Warren JFK versus Lowville. And I think everyone had this one circled as soon as it popped up on the schedule. And it did not disappoint. 75-74, Warren JFK able to come out on top of an absolute instant classic in Lowville. Lisbon was able to beat Valley Christian 67-44, the final score there. Trevor Sifke, just a casual 35 points. No skin off that. He has, if I'm right, 13 points away from 1,000 for Trevor Sifke. He needed 48 going into these last 2 games. He gets 35 last night against Valley. We have Louisville getting a win over Massillon Washington, 72-66, the final score there. We saw The Harding Raiders take care of East Liverpool 86-60, the final score there. Those are your one more score, excuse me. Hoban got the win over Perry 53-29. Those are your final scores from last night. So once again, a great night of boys basketball. Last week of the regular season, we'll have the last day of the regular season on Friday, and then basketball district tournament starts Tuesday. So here we go, rolling hard towards the tournament time. One last day of regular season basketball for the boys. And the girls start their tournament runs tonight for divisions 2 through 4. Division 1 started on Saturday. With that being said, let's go over all the games you can find on the network tonight. $9.99 gets you access to all these games that'll be featured on the network. And we'll go with first Alliance going to Struthers in the field house. Bob Zanny and the Struthers School taking care of that one at 7 o'clock for your tip-off. Andrews Osborne will go to Wellsville. That one will be on the network. Coy will be there for the call. 7 o'clock tip-off there. Ashtabula St. John goes to Warren JFK. Dom O'Brien on the call for this one. Aurora will travel to Ursuline. Be careful of this Aurora team. They're coming down from Division 1 into Division 2. Those teams are always sneaky as Ursuline tries to avoid that upset, hosting Aurora at 7 o'clock. I will be there for that one. Canton Central Catholic will go to Waterloo. Ty Bartell will be on the call there. 7 o'clock, your tip-off in Atwater. Conneaut will go to Canfield. Richie Giuliano on the call there as the top-seeded Canfield Cardinals look to start off their tournament run with a bang. A CVC rematch as Geneva will go to Edgewood at 7 o'clock. Edgewood has 2 wins over the Eagles so far this season. They'll look to get a third. Sam Torres will be on the call in Ashtabula. Grand Valley travels to Columbiana. Hoppy will be on the call there. 7 o'clock first tip for you from the hangar in Columbiana. A NE8 rematch, the third matchup between Hubbard and Girard tonight. 7 o'clock tip. It'll be David Williams on the call in Girard. LeBray will travel to Crestview, another conference matchup, as that'll be the third matchup of those two. Larry Scragg will be on the call. A really interesting one, 11 versus 12. 11 Pymatuning Valley hosting 12 Liberty. So this might be, well, at least, seating-wise, the most competitive matchup of the night. 7 o'clock is your tip-off there. Alec Myrna will be on the call. NDCL going to Howland. Noah Ricks on the call there at 7 o'clock. Ravenna will be at West Branch. Michael Janaki will be on the call there. South Range travels to United at 7 o'clock. It will be Chris Sigler on the call. Valley Christian goes to Badger. Matt Morrison making the trip. Not making the trip. He's really close to Badger. He'll be there for the call at 7 o'clock as well. And then Garfield will have the school broadcast as they host Camel Memorial. Some other tournament games that are going on tonight. Beaver Local will be at Tuscarawas Valley. East Liverpool will be at Carrollton. Edison will be at West Muskingham. Jefferson goes to Berkshire. Lowville goes to Fairport Harding. McDonald goes to Newton Falls. Wyndham will go to Matthews. Scheduling note that Western Reserve automatically advances. Maplewood has backed out of that game, so Western Reserve wins in a no contest. So that game not happening. Do not go to Western Reserve. It is not happening tonight for that. So that'll be the tournament games on the network tonight. You can get all of them for one payment of $9.99. So one payment of $9.99 gets you access to all of the tournament games that will be on the network tonight. Pay-per-view wall up again because of the OHSAA charges that come down on us for streaming tournament games. So we have to put up that pay-per-view wall, but we think it's a pretty good deal getting all those games for just one payment of $9.99. And then, of course, if it's a really good game and you want to keep it, you can buy the download link the next day for $2.99 on the on-demand section of your school's webpage of YSN. You can also, people always ask this, how can I go back and watch it at home afterwards? Yes, if you pay $9.99 for the pay-per-view, you get the access to the playlist. That game will be up. Usually you'll be able to play it until, well, I think it's until, I have to check with Brian, but I think it's until like that broadcaster actually hits stream on the next game that they do. That's why, like, if you go to right now, if you went to any of the school's websites, schools YSN pages, and you click play on that window, even if there's a game tonight, the first thing that will play until that announcer goes live will be the last game that they did. So for me, for example, if you go to my game tonight, if you went to Ursuline and Aurora and you paid for it, but you tried to play it right now before I went live tonight, what would play would be the champion boys game from last night. So you'll be able to watch it DVR style for a little bit after you come home if you pay for the $9.99 for the access to the playlist. So, and then once that goes away, you'll be able to buy the download, have it forever for $2.99 on the on-demand section of the website. So it's going to be a fun night for us as we go into tournament time on the girls' side. And then there are a couple of tournament games tomorrow as well that got moved to tomorrow. So these are just if you're looking for them. East Palestine game got moved to tomorrow. They'll be hosting Bristol at 7 o'clock. DJ Oakley will be on the call. And then Archbishop Hoban takes on Cuyahoga Falls tomorrow. Basically, everything in Division 1 is still tomorrow, but that one game between Bristol and East Palestine moved to tomorrow at 7. So all that taken care of, which means we'll end today's episode of Running Point, and we'll see you all tomorrow from 1 to 2. Power Hour should be up next at 3 to 4, and then we'll have a bunch of tournament games on the network tonight. 999 gets you access. ysnlive.com/live is where you can find the whole schedule of the games that we'll cover if you missed me going over it. And we'll be back tomorrow from